Hello everyone, I'm Siddharthan. In this video, let's discuss how we can build a Streamlit chatbot using OpenAI's newest model GPT-4o. We will build a Streamlit web app similar to this where we can ask the question which will be answered by GPT-4o, which stands for GPT-4 Omni model. So this is a simple text-based chatbot, and later we can also work on including the multimodality of images and audio, and we can also work on concepts like RAG. So here I've asked a question about what is machine learning, and we are getting this detailed answer from GPT-4o model. So this maintains a clear memory, so we can continue this conversation. So next I have asked the question of shorter answer. So this will look at the previous conversation and answer based on that. So when I ask for shorter answer, it will look at the previous answer it has given and gives a shorter response for this. So here we are seeing a shorter definition for machine learning. I've also asked the question of Python code to train a neural network with PyTorch. So here we get a response with proper formatting of the Python code. So we will build this application with Streamlit, and we will also discuss how we can configure our OpenAI and how we can use the GPT-4o model. So this will be the agenda for today's video, and let's get started. So I'll open my PyCharm, and PyCharm is like a better IDE in order to work on this. So you can either use Visual Studio Code or PyCharm, or you can also use Spider, but PyCharm will be like a bit better. So I've already made video on how you can set up your project with PyCharm, so you can refer to that. So here I'll create a new project, and so this is the location in which it's going to be saved. And here I'm going to rename this. So let's say that I have this folder called as LLM where I'm going to make this. So here I'll select this LLM, and when I give a name for this, it will create like another subdirectory where my project will be created. So I'll call this as GPT-4o chat, and I'll just put a name for this. So I'll just put this as May 17. So this will create a virtual environment within this particular directory. So it's always better to have this virtual environment so that your other projects libraries are not changed. So I'm going to give this custom environment, generate new virtual environment, and the version that I'm working on is 3.10. So if you want, you can also like use a latest version. So I'll give this create, and I'll open this in new window. So this is the previous Streamlit app that I had, so I can kind of keep this running, and later I can stop this one. Okay, so this is the new project directory that it has created, and it has this venv. So now here I'm going to create a folder called as src, which stands for source code. So this is like a standard approach of the folder structures and the code files. I'll also create a file and call this as requirements.txt. So it's always better to put your codes within this src, and in the default project directory you can have the file for requirements.txt, which would have your library details. And within this src we can create another Python file and name this as main.py, which is again the standard naming convention. And within this main.py file we can have the code for our Streamlit app and calling this OpenAI model and so on. So for this particular use case, we are going to need like two libraries. One is OpenAI in order to access the model, and the other one is Streamlit. So I'll use OpenAI. So we can use the latest libraries in order to find this latest libraries. So you can go to Google and search OpenAI PyPI. So this would show you the latest library version. So I'll just copy it from here. So the time that I'm making this video, it's 1.30.1. So these libraries are like kind of constantly getting updated because of the new models and the new features that they are providing. So here I'll say OpenAI is equal to 1.30.1, and the Streamlit's latest version is 1.34.0. So this is the latest version by the time that I'm kind of using this video. So you can use the same requirements.txt file. So now I'll open my terminal, so you can see this directory. So this is in GPT-4o chat, which is the one that we have created, and here I can say pip install -r requirements.txt. So this will install all the libraries that I mentioned in this requirements.txt with this specific version and all the other libraries that this two packages need. So I'll run this. So this will run the required libraries, which is basically OpenAI, Streamlit, and other dependent libraries. So this is the first step. So next, what we will be doing is import the necessary libraries, configure our OpenAI package with the OpenAI API key, and then we can write the code for this. So this will be the process. So in the meantime, this code is, I mean, the libraries are getting installed. Let's open this main.py file and get started with the code. So first is we need to import the required libraries, as I said. So I'll import OS in order to access some directories and some files. And let's import this JSON and then import Streamlit as ST and import OpenAI. So this is again another standard. So we kind of import the inbuilt libraries first, give a line space, and then import the other libraries. So if you have custom libraries like, let's say, OpenAI utils or LLM utils, you can import those custom Python scripts in the next line. So that's like a standard procedure. But yeah, for us we don't need it. So I'm importing these things. Now we have to configure our API key. So for that we need to get this, and our API key can be stored in a file called as config.json. So I'll right click in this source, create another JSON file. So I'll create this file and call this config.json. So you can kind of copy and paste the OpenAI code here, but it's not recommended. So it's always better to put this in a configuration file, or you can put this in a .env file and load it using load.env. So that is like better approach. So you can either do this JSON approach or the .env approach. So here I'm going to create a key value pair. So I'm going to call this OpenAI API key. So put these things in quotes. So go to Google, search OpenAI. So in the previous video, we have discussed how we can access this GPT model and ask a question. So there I've explained you how you can get this, API key. So this is the process. So just search OpenAI and go to this. We have this research for business developers and so on, right? So come to this API section and give this start building. So this will ask you for login. So I hope that you already have a login page. So here you will see a sign up and sign in option. So I've already logged in, so I'm seeing this. And in this navigation bar you will see this API keys option. So I've already created a API key, so I can see this API key. So if you want to create a new one, so you can just revoke this API key and create a new API key here. So I'll create a new API key and I'll call this as GPT-4o ChatBot. So default project, you can set up your permissions and so on. So I'll create the secret key and I'll copy this and put it in my config.json file. Okay, so now we have to access this API key and pass it to the OpenAI configuration thing. So I'll close this config.json, and here this part is for configuring OpenAI API key. And open the terminal and see if the libraries are installed. As you can see, all the libraries are installed. So I'll just clear the logs in the terminal. So now I'll say working directory, working directory is equal to os.path dot directory name os.path dot absolute path file. So this is a very important aspect. I'll explain you in a minute what we are doing here. So here I'll create a variable called as config data, which is equal to json.load open if working directory /config.json. So let's understand this. So this line of code, right? Look at the 9th line code. So here we are opening this config.json file and loading that to a dictionary called as config underscore data. So that's what we do using this json.load open. So first the file is open, and using this json.load, it's converted into a Python dictionary and stored here. Now when you give this without this working directory, what will happen is it won't be able to locate this config.json file, because when you run a Streamlit app, it won't run in this particular working directory, which is this GPT-4o chat directory and src. So this is the directory in which main.py file is there, but it won't run there. So it will run in the place where you have installed Python, or basically it will run in your users. So let's say that in my PC it would run in users and sit. So that's the user name that I have. So it will run there. So we have to give this complete path or the full path of this config.json. So what I can do is right click here and go to this copy path or reference and copy this absolute path. So I can copy that and put it in this place. So I can do that, but if I share this code with someone else, right, then they have to change this path and give the path that they have in their system, right? So that's not a better way to write your code. So what we are doing here is, when I call for this working directory, os.path directory name, os.path absolute path of file, so this will look at this main.py file where we have written this code and get the path of this working directory, basically the working directory or the directory where your main.py file is situated. So that's stored in your working directory. And now we are going to pass this. So working directory slash config.json. So when you run this code in your local machine, so it will automatically pick up the path of this main.py file and it can access this config.json, provided you have this config.json file. So that's the idea behind this. Now we have this config.json and it's a dictionary, right? So we can also try printing it. So print config.data. Config underscore data. Let's print it and see the result. So we have this open API key is the key, and the value for this pair is this one, right? Now we have to configure our open AI package. So let's do that. I'll create like a constant kind of thing and say OpenAI API key is equal to config data, and we need to pass the key. So the key for this dictionary is OpenAI API key. So let's copy that and paste it over here. So this API key is loaded into this particular variable. And now I'll say OpenAI, which is the library that we have imported. So OpenAI dot API key. So this is how you can configure this, is equal to OpenAI API key. Okay, so the simple step of doing this is, instead of having this in a config.json file, you can just paste your key here. But as I said, it's not recommended to put your key and secrets in your code, so that, I mean, you won't be able to share it, right, if you put your key. So that's the purpose. We put this in a JSON file or a .env file and work on it. So that's the thing about it. So we have this OpenAI.api key now. So now we have configured this. Now we can start working on building the Streamlit app. So this is configuring Streamlit page settings. Okay, so here I'll say st.set page config. So here we are going to configure our page with page title, and so page, let's call this as GPT-4o chat, and then we can have a page icon. So page icon, you can copy and paste a emoji. So I'll just go to Google and search like chat emoji. So you can kind of copy any emojis from this Emojipedia. So I'll just copy this chat thing. So I'll copy and paste it here. And next is layout. Let's understand what all these things will do. The layout that I'm going to use is centered. Okay, so these are the things. Now let's open our the Streamlit app that I've already showed you. So here you're seeing this, right? GPT-4o chat. This is the page title and this is the page icon. So these two things are set up here. So we have this GPT-4o chat and this icon, and then you have this entire thing in the center of the page, right? So this is what this page layout does, layout of centered. You have another option, and that's called as wide, where your entire content of the screen is like present in a wider space in the screen. So you can also try that out, but these are all the two options. So that's the purpose of setting up this page config. So the next thing that we are going to do is initialize your chat. So I'll say initialize chat session in Streamlit if not already present. Let's understand this. So Streamlit by default won't maintain any sessions in this case, right? So when you ask a question, it gives you an answer. When you ask another question and run it, it won't retain this memory. So in order to kind of work around this, we are going to maintain session stage. So that's the purpose of this. So here I'll say if chat history not in st dot session state, I'm going to say st dot session state dot chat history is equal to a empty list. Let's understand this. So st is nothing but your Streamlit library, right? And within this we have this class or function kind of thing called a session state. So within the session state, we will maintain all the sessions and the states of our web page. In this case, the purpose of this is to maintain the chat history. So what this particular if condition will do is, this runs, or this is applicable when your application or your web page runs for the first time. So it will look into this Streamlit session state. If it checks if this key called as chat history is there, so when your web app starts for the first time, your chat history won't be there. This key value pair of chat history won't be there. So there we are going to create a key value pair in the session state called as chat history, and the value we are going to pass to it is a empty list. So as I said, as this is applicable only when this loads for the first time, right? So even when you refresh this, that's like a new session state. So when it initializes, you are just going to create initialization thing called a session state of chat history, and then once you ask this question and it kind of gives you the answer, all this will be stored in this chat history. So that's the purpose of this. So all you have to remember here is this is to initialize your chat, and when initializing this, we are going to create this key value pair of chat history and put a value of empty list there. So next is we can just give a name for our Streamlit page. So I'll say this is for Streamlit page title, and I can say st.title. This is a simple thing, so nothing complex. So I can say GPT-4o ChatBot. Okay, here if you want, you can also again copy and paste a emoji like this. So again, I can search it, robot emoji, and I can just copy it from here. So you can, use any emojis, or you can write without any emojis as well. So like nothing important about it. So I'll just put a robot emoji here. So we have this Streamlit page title. So next we have to the next part is like displaying the chat history and how we can get a prompt from the user. So the next thing is displaying this history and how you can create the prompt input field here. So here I'll say display chat history for message in st.session state dot chat history with st dot chat message rule, and then st dot markdown message content. Okay, so let's understand this. So this for loop, so this is used to display your chat history. So in this case, if we see this, right, the first question that I have is what is machine learning, and I'm getting a response, and then I've asked a question of short answer. So when I ask this question, the previous message and the previous question shouldn't go away, right? So what we are doing is all this will be stored in the session state in the key value pair of chat history. So I'm using a for loop to iterate over this chat history and display all the questions and messages. So when I say for message in session state of chat history, message will contain two aspects. One is a role and the other one is a content. Role will tell the tell the Streamlit interface, or it basically role contains whether it's a user message or it's a assistant message. User message is what we are giving here, and the assistant message is what we are getting here. So this is used to say that if the tag or the role of the message is user, so this is going to be printed with this particular icon and in this way. And if the message role is assistant, it's going to put it with this particular emoji, and the answer will be in this way. So basically your message contains two parts. One is a role and the other one is content. Content is the actual content that we have. In this case, the role will be user and the content will be what is machine learning. In this case, the role will be assistant and the content will be this entire thing. So all these things are stored in our chat history. So our chat history basically contains this message, and each message will have a role and content. And using this for loop, we are printing and showing this all the previous conversation in the Streamlit web app. So that's the purpose. So when I ask another question, so all the previous chat history are displayed using a for loop. So that's the purpose of this particular for loop. So now and then we are just displaying this. So when I say chat message of role, it's kind of representing this role so that it's like properly tagged. And then we have this st.markdown message content, so that is this content thing. So the content is displayed using st.markdown format. So it's like a markdown container that's present in Streamlit. So now we can create this prompt input field for the user. So here I'll say input field for user's message. So here I can say user prompt. Let's create a variable called as user prompt, and this will store the question that's asked by the user. And for this we can say st.chat input, and here we can write something like ask GPT-4o or anything. You can give anything, but let's use this. So this st.chat input basically creates this input field with this send button and so on, and you can have like some placeholder like this. So ask GPT-4o is kind of a line that we have, right? So that's what is kind of given here. So chat input creates this input users input field, and you have this message as ask GPT-4o or something like that here. So you can give anything. So when the user asks a question, so that question or that prompt is stored in the variable called as user prompt. So now I'm going to say if user prompt, that means, let me put this in another line. If user prompt, that means if the user has given a prompt, if they have sent a prompt, now what we have to do is we have to pass the entire chat history and the question that the user asked to the model, get a response from the model and display it here. So those are the remaining aspects of this code. So here I'll say add users message to chat and display it. So when a user asks a question, right? So if I kind of go here and ask a question, right, write code to train a model with TensorFlow, so that question will be displayed here. Maybe I'll show this, or I'll say what is deep learning. So this question is displayed here, right? So that's what we are going to do now. So I'll say st dot chat message user. So this is the question asked by the user. So I'm going to say dot markdown user prompt. So this st.chat message of dot markdown is what is given here. So when I asked what is deep learning, so it's kind of displayed here, right? So this is done by using this st.chat message of user markdown, and then we get a response over here, and we have this here, right? So that's about it. Now we have to add this prompt to the chat history, and we will pass this entire chat history to the model because it has to look at the previous conversation and respond based on that. So I'll say st.session state dot chat history. So I'm going to plug in this user input to the previous chat history that we have. I'll say dot append because the chat history is basically a list which we have initiated, which is a list, right, which is an empty list. So dot append, and we have to append this as role as user, and content is going to be the user prompt, the user question asked by the user. So it shouldn't be in code as it is a variable. Okay, so this is how all the each element of the list would be. So previously if you kind of look at this, right, the first answer that we got, so within this list that we have created in the chat history, we will have a dictionary with two key value pairs. So one is a role user, and the content will be the question asked. And then we have this again in the chat history, we'll have the role as assistant, and the content will be the answer given by the assistant. So you would have this for all the messages, and to that we are adding another line which is this role of user and the prompt, the question that's asked by the user. Now we have to invoke the GPT-4o API and get a response out of this. So this is send users message to GPT-4o and get a response. So here I'll say response is equal to OpenAI dot chat dot completion. So it's going to act as a chat completion thing, because it has like a previous conversation and it has to complete it where the user is asking some questions. So here I'll say create. So we are going to create this chat completion method and say here we can pass the models, like you can pass GPT 3.5 or you can pass GPT-4 or any model of your choice. So I'll say model is equal to GPT-4o. So if you want GPT-4, just say GPT-4 or GPT 3.5 turbo or GPT-4 turbo, any different models. So what I've noticed is that if you don't have a payment method in your OpenAI site, right? So the API key is not working. So it's not able to access GPT-4o or GPT-4. If you are accessing GPT 3.5, then it's working without a payment option. So you can try adding a payment option, a card detail. So if you can't do that, you can maybe try this code with GPT 3.5 turbo. It's going to work the same way as this is working, only the questions or the responses quality may change. But if you want to understand the code without giving any payment option, just go with GPT 3.5. So we have this GPT-4o and we have to structure the payload. So I'll put a comma here and and call this messages. So this OpenAI chat completion thing takes in two parameters. One is the model and the messages that we need to pass. So here we are going to pass the chat history where we have already added the user prompt. But along with this, we need to kind of tell the model what's the role that it's going to play. So this I've explained in my previous video where I've explained you how you can use this GPT-4o API. So here we kind of open a list and say create a dictionary, and the key is role and the role will be system, and then the content for this would be you are a helpful assistant. Okay, so this is like setting the context for the model. So here we are going to say that you are a helpful assistant and this is my chat history and the user has asked a question. Now give a response for this particular question. So this is how this would work. So I'll put a comma and say asterisk st dot session state dot chat history. Okay, so when I put this asterisk, it basically unpacks all the elements of this list and basically gives this as like separate values. So as I said, the chat history basically contains different number of dictionaries where it has this role and content. So the chat history in this case would contain this what is machine learning as the first content, and then the role would be user, and the next value or the next dictionary would be assistant, and the content will be here. So we are unpacking all these things and passing this to this messages model. So before that we have to set the context for the model saying that you are a helpful assistant. So now this looks at this system role of system, which basically says the model how it should behave, and the chat history, and this chat history also contains a user prompt as we have appended this to the chat history. So once we send this, it will look at the previous conversation and it will also look at the user prompt, the new question that they have asked, and it will give a response, and that response is stored in this variable called as response. Okay, and now we have to, I mean, it's kind of like a different data format, so it will have this choice messages and so on. So we have to unpack only that text content. So for that you can use a variable called as assistant response. So we are going to extract only the text content from this response. So is equal to response, the one that we have got from the model, dot choices. This also we have discussed in the previous video, like the structure of this response. So you have this message dot content. So when you use this, it will extract only the content or the text output or answer for this user prompt, and we are going to store that in the variable called as assistant response. So now I'll say st dot session state dot chat history dot append. So what I'm doing here is to this chat history I'm adding the response that I got from the model. So dot append, it should be a dictionary where it contains two key value pairs. One is the role. So this message came from the model, right? So let's call this as assistant, and the content will be the assistant's response. So this is how we have to tag this. User's question should be tagged with the role of user, right, like this, and the assistant's response should be tagged with the role of assistant, and we have this content, the response is present here. So now we have to display this message. So for displaying this, I can say display GPT-4o's response. And I'll say with st dot chat message. So this is going to be the assistant message because it has to give this robot kind of an icon. So I'm going to say chat message of assistant and st.markdown. So it's a markdown container, and within this I'm going to paste the assistant response. So this is how this would work. Okay, so the entire idea here is, so first we create a session state, an empty list. So to that we are going to add this system message of you are a helpful assistant, and we add this user prompt to this particular chat history and send it to the model. So the model will look at this context of you are a helpful assistant, so that's going to behave as a helpful assistant, and then to look at this user prompt and give the response for this using this chat completion thing. And this process goes on. So when it runs for the next time, so this thing won't run, this won't, because this will happen only when chat history is not there. But when you have asked the question for the first time, it has already created this chat history, so it's not going to initiate it again, so it won't create a empty list again. So your chat history now contains the first question as well as the message. To that we are again adding this user prompt and then like getting a response to this, and this process kind of goes on, and finally we kind of display the question as well as the response using this assistant icon and the markdown container. So this is how this code works. So I'll now go to my previous version that I've showed you. I'll close this. I'll close this thing as well. Now we can start our application. So make sure that you have ran like pip install. So you should do this pip install -r requirements.txt. So look that we are in this GPT-4o chat May 17. So we are not in src directory. So we are in the project directory. So run this pip install -r requirements.txt. And once the code aspect is done, once you have your config.json thing, all those things, you can run your Streamlit app by saying Streamlit run. So my main.py file is the one that contains the Streamlit code, but it's present in the directory called as src. So I have to say src/main.py. Or the other thing I can do is go to this, navigate to this directory using cd src and say streamlit run main.py. But I want to stay in this project directory, so I'm saying streamlit run src/main.py and run this. So this will give you this local URL. So you can click this, or like this will automatically open a page in your browser. So here you can go ahead and ask a question of, let's say, what is machine learning? And let's send this. So here we would get a response from the model. So this takes a few seconds for the model. So once it kind of gives the response, so it's kind of displayed in the markdown format. Yeah, as you can see here. So what's basically happening here is when we refresh this, so the chat history is not there. So this will instantiate this using this particular line of code. And then when we type in a question and it send, so it's going to display that question using this. So we have this chat message of user, and then we are using a markdown to display it, and then we have this st.session state, adding that user prompt to the chat history and asking the model for a response. So this process goes on. So when I put this as short answer, give me a short answer, right? So it's similar to this. So this, what is machine learning, and this content is passed to the chat history, and this question is also passed on to the chat history and sent to the model with the format of a role of whether it's a user question or the assistant response, and then the model would give a response which we are going to display it over here. So once we get a response, we are saving it here and displaying it using with st.chat message of assistant st.markdown. St is nothing but streamlit.markdown assistant response. So let's put this as shorter answer, so we would get a shorter response from this. So this is how you can use a GPT-4o model in order to create a chatbot. So I hope that this is helpful to you. So please practice this code and try to understand this. And in the upcoming videos, let's work on this by creating more applications to this. Like let's say the widely used RAG, the retrieval augmented generation thing, and how you can deploy this LLMs in a production ready way, and so many things. I have some ideas. I'll probably make videos on these topics, and also maybe try and use Llama 2 chat or Llama 3 models. So these are the things I'm planning. So if you want to learn any other specific things, you can let me know as well. So that's it from my side, and I'll see you in the next upload. Thanks for watching.